Are you one of those people who feels that for too long we've had no say over how our taxes are spent, and you get very cross about places like Nkandlas being built, or highways, and then the toll roads, and then petrol taxes going up? And even though individuals are the largest contributing basket to the fiscus, you say, hold on a second, I don't get a say in the way in which that money is spent. This is Tonight. I am Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we find out how this could very well change. Stiaan Klue is Secretary General Designate of the Taxpayer Movement. Your day job is as a tax professional. You're not some crazy guy. Well, you might be a crazy guy, but you're not somebody from outside who knows nothing about tax, who just wants to go in there and shake the tree.
I hope so, Bruce, that I would be able to add some value to the citizens of this country.
What is it about the tax system that you feel is lacking from a lack of public participation?
Bruce, I think from the collection side, I don't think we've got a major problem. I think SARS is doing a great job in assisting taxpayers to be compliant, reaching out with their mobile units, etc. The concern is on the spending side, and also sometimes on the policy side. For example, we had this outcry with the toll roads in Gauteng. And what we've seen is that taxpayers pushed back against the system, and that was the start of a revolt, for lack of a better word. Maybe not as...
They pushed back against SANRAL, though. Very few people would dare push back against SARS, because SARS has got a reputation of being heavy-handed, strong-armed, and has the law and case history on its side. SANRAL, chaotic, nowhere organisation designed to collect revenues. Different kettle of fish, not?
Yes and no. I think from SARS perspective, I think the citizens perceive the system to be fair. That they're firm but fair in their approach to taxpayers. Whereas on the SANRAL side, the question is, why should we pay additional taxes on using the rolls, the user pay principle?
What difference can an individual like yourself make going into somewhere like Treasury? Have you even got the go-ahead to do it? Well,
you don't need a go-ahead. We're a democracy. And in a democracy, the people govern, and they through the ballot box, they air their view. The others stay away. And if you look at the African voter turnout, the eligible voter turnout, we only have about 50% of eligible voters voting. And the question is the system failing us? And it's a global question. It's not only a question as Africa. We shouldn't make it as a problem for us only. In the US, it's been raised by the First Lady.
Yeah, how does the taxpayer movement make a difference? I mean, yes, you say we are a democracy. We have a say. Vast majority of South Africans voted for the current regime. The current regime is the government of the day. It dictates tax policy, and will also say, oh, we've got a bit of a shortfall. Now we can go to capital markets and borrow money to build roads, or we can use the user pays principle. It's been badly constructed. The way in which collections have been done have been badly constructed, fair enough, but it's the government of the day. We've had our say as a populace. Isn't this more of a factional fight?
I think the voters, and it's a global thing again, they're disillusioned with the system. They may not trust politicians, and I think there's this age-old saying of no taxation without representation. And if you look at the voter turnout in the 2014 elections, 11 million voted of the 54 million citizens, and 34.5 million eligible voters voted for the ANC, the ruling party. And we are the rest. And they all pay tax.
Is your argument that everybody gets a vote but not everybody pays tax, and taxpayers should have a bigger say in the way in which the affairs of the country are run?
I think some people choose to be affiliated to a political party, others not. They stay away, either because they show the discomfort with the system, or they are not inclined to be politically, but they still have to pay taxes. And what we are saying as a movement is that we want to, from an apolitical perspective, we want to represent those individuals and taxpayers to have a say. So that's a democracy. You can choose whether you want to vote or not.
Absolutely, but you call yourselves a movement. Achang called itself a movement as well, became a political party. It hasn't ended particularly well for them. Is this sort of the testing ground to see whether or not you have enough support to create a political party?
Definitely not. It's not. It cannot venture into. If you look globally, the successful taxpayer associations or movements, representative organisations, they're non-political.
So you're a lobby group then?
We're a lobby group, and again, it's to create a harmony. I think there's a gap. Civil society needs to play a much stronger role, a bigger role in the country. And it's civil society movement. It's not a violent, it's a non-sexistic, sexist movement.
Okay, but here's a situation where we had the Davis Tax Committee appointed by government to advise government on what the best direction is, the biggest potential reform of South African taxation since the Katz Commission of nearly 20 years ago. Finance Minister took one look at some of the recommendations, went, don't like that, I'll take that, I don't like the rest of it, we'll take it under advisement. If the finance minister is not listening to his own committee that he appointed, then why would he listen to you?
It's a difficult question. I think the Davis Committee is acted as an advisory grouping. Yeah. They formalised the Davis Committee in the sense that we see it today. Before the establishment, the formal establishment, Judge Dennis Davis and Matthew Lester were de facto advisors to the Treasury on matters affecting tax policy and development. So I think it's an ongoing debate. What is the perfect mix in terms of taxation?
But how do you influence it? That's my question. How do you, as the taxpayers movement, influence government's collections? And more importantly, I think you're concerned with spending.
The President a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, said regarding the AMCU establishment on the mines, he said that we engaged the majority. Because there was a question at the time in Parliament, why would he ever engage this new union? And he said, at the moment, we engage in the largest union, the biggest union, and that's a democracy. That's his definition. That's the political party, the ruling party's definition of democracy and how they engage. So I do think that if the taxpayer movement establishes a footprint down to grassroots level, not just an ivory tower movement, that speaks from a voice of reason, I've got no doubt, and I've seen that when I established the Institute of Tax Professionals, that if you are a voice of reason, government do listen. Initially, the new kid on the block, they may not take serious, but you prove your worth.
Why do you need a new movement when you've got the practitioners? So practitioners are purely practitioners. The movement is for ordinary citizens. You spoke about a tax revolt earlier, and that citizens of South Africa are very cross, and the e-tolls is the first sign of a tax revolt. Is this going to be the purpose of the movement, to drive the agenda of a tax revolt?
No, absolutely
not. To get attention,
it cannot.
to lobby, to push?
No. It should be apolitical. It should not be against the government of the day. We have to respect the government of the day, because if you look at the eligible voters, they would be taxpayers, either direct taxes or indirect taxes. And it's definitely not, I know some of the
South Africa's favourite pastime is nobody listens to anybody else, and you only start listening to people when people start either disobeying the law physically or passively. How are you going to have an impact as a movement unless you're going to make a fuss? Because only those, the ones that make the loudest noise in South Africa, get the attention.
Again, it's not up to an individual. I'm merely the operator, breathing life into this movement. It will be up to the citizens to decide how they would like to.
And what happens if people, you get used as a vehicle for people to say, we don't want to pay tax. We don't like the way in which our municipality operates, so we're not going to pay our rates anymore. We don't like the way in which government spending happens, so we're not going to pay our taxes anymore. And they start using you as a vehicle, because this is a democracy, and you want people to have their say. There are lots of angry people. Are you not at the risk of being hijacked?
Absolutely, and I think Trevor Manuel had that risk when he was appointed finance minister. He could have been hijacked by either the ruling party or the ANC, and he was hard-nosed, even against his own party, regarding fiscal policy and economic policy. So it depends on the leadership.
And I still don't know how, though, you're going to get noticed and how you're going to foment change. I'm not getting to the nub of this.
I'm with you, and I appreciate the question. But it will have to show through organic growth. You see, it cannot be a cheap.
Can you toy? I mean, how do you, but how do you get this attention? You come onto platforms like this, do you make recommendations? Do you write tips to the minister on Twitter? What do you do to drive your agenda?
I think again, coming back to democracy, you need to hear the voice of the masses, the taxpayers.
But you've created a movement on the basis that there is a big enough base to support the creation of this movement with an agenda. You want to change something. Have you thought it through?
Absolutely.
So how are you going to do it?
Starting with getting the feedback from the ground up, so you don't have the pushback that we've seen with the toll roads. If there was prior engagement, if OTA, for example, that's now the militant movement against the toll roads, if that organization was established proactively, we would not have seen the damage to the country and our credit rating.
How will we see whether or not your movement is working or not? How will we know? How will we measure you 5 years from now? Was it just another startup that faded due to lack of interest, or because members didn't pay their subs, or whatever the case is? Or are you actually making a real impact? How will we judge you?
The wisdom of hindsight, and looking back, connecting the dots, looking back. I think starting something with a noble idea, with a philanthropic idea, is the way to go. And if you base it on that foundation, you will be successful. That is how I started SITE. I had negative commentary from large organizations and other associations. It's going to be a failure. It's born dead. And today we're the largest body.
Okay, well, look, I look forward to seeing how it pans out, because certainly there are enough South Africans cross about where their tax money goes to give you some interesting support. Stiaan Klue is Secretary General Designate of the yet really to be formed Taxpayer Movement. We'll watch this space with a great deal of interest. Thank you for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.